Hi guys, have I got an incredible week for you? It was a lot to take in, wasn't it? The crazy protests, the noose wielding people, the freedoms around the country. Well, not really freedoms, just the life getting back to normal. Nothing was really taken from me. Oh, yeah, I could have gone out there like an idiot and spreaded a disease, but the smart thing would have been to do to realize, no, this is a pretty serious thing. So, in all of this, I want to talk about where we fit in. We are a wonderful nation that is built on wonderful things. I cannot stress that even along the lines of me critiquing some of what we have here, critiquing only means that we want it to get better. We are a beautiful nation. You wouldn't think so with the whole having nooses people, but I mean, I think overwhelmingly we are a great people. Yesterday, like everything else, I had to return to a bit of life as normal. I don't know how many of you were interested, but I always give like this little, I'm not supposed to, but I always give like this little personal bit to the way my day is. Yesterday was my littlest girl's birthday, and we went into the city, and I was so furious seeing these idiots walking the streets protesting anti lockdown measures with no lockdown. Oh my God, I was like murderous. My husband's like, no, 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 honey, it's fine. Let them be idiots. Just don't walk near them. And I'm watching them wave around their stupid American flags like they're in America and pretending like this is a real thing. And there was a part of me, if I had have calmed down enough and just been a little bit sane, just a smidgen, I think I would have been able to catch a photo of it. But I was so incensed at the stupidity that I couldn't like focus. And I'm like, no, it's truly my 15-year-old's birthday. And I do not want to be political. This was one of those moments where you want to make it about the kids and you're trying to do the kid thing and you're trying to be excited. And then you get these idiots walking down the street and you're like, dude, are you testing me? Are you testing my sanity? I'm going to burn things. And that's how it felt. And there was that real moment where you just want to go, oh my God, go home. And I'm watching the police, give them all this room and pretending like they've got this huge right to be crazy in the middle of Brisbane. I went through a train ride, all for that moment with my daughter. And I promised her a political free moment. And it was on the train. These idiots were on my train. I knew it was going to be bad. The moment I stepped onto the train, I'm like, no, I can't do this. So we did everything we could to reasonably avoid idiocy. And I suppose when you know the other side of things, normally people are like, live and let live and whatever else. But me, I'm not so great on the whole keeping my sanity in check time. They definitely got what they wanted. They got people to be megally upset at the idea that they're protesting a lockdown when they're not in freaking lockdown. Breathing is a must. You can't walk around and pretend like this is a thing. And if we do it, we're not helping anyone. We are an intelligent nation, despite what I seen yesterday. Do you know what I seen also in relation to this same thing? A large group of Brisbane people just going about their day, getting their shopping done, and it's something that I really, really want people to understand. It's not normal. We're we aren't this sort of nation that allows for idiots to thrive first. And that was obvious. Everyone around him that had no idea it was even happening. I I had one woman ask me, "What's going on there?" And I went, "If I tell you, my children are going to abandon me. So I'm going to have to respectfully decline this conversation." Oh, yeah. And best of all, my husband is going to pretend like he doesn't know me. So he knew damn well I was like all the way to crazy town at this point. And as this manifested into the day, and I thought, how am I going to talk about this? I thought, do the most realist thing you can. Tell them this was not cool. And for the idiots in Melbourne, bright sparks, no nooses. No matter what you think you are doing, you do not need a noose to convey any message. There is not a message applicable where you need a noose. If you have a noose, you are not one of these peaceful protesters. That's an act of violence, you crazy nut jobs. Yes, I'm going to call you that. Takes one to know one. I was feeling crazy looking at you yesterday. My God. It was. I don't know where Australians thought it was a great idea to even fly the American flag. I don't know how many people have seen this. But my husband even like said to me, if you were calm, you could actually get like a nice clear picture of how dumb this all looks. And he's right. If I had been critically thinking in my right, non-crazy mind, I could have taken that picture, walked away, and then went, what a lovely day. Despite all of that, my daughter still had a wonderful birthday. And I want to thank all the people around her that made it part of it. And there's a lot of family and friends that made sure that she got everything she wanted and needed, and all of that was fulfilled, despite my little crazy manic moment of just feeling like this was just the most insane thing that you've ever seen. I think we've all reached a point where frustrations are real. And during these lockdowns, and this is what it was, we were all in our homes and we all watched way too much YouTube. We all learned way too many hobbies that we're probably never going to pick up. Some of us learned some amazing things, like I learned how to cook a little bit better. I still killed herbs. But some other people, they couldn't handle the lockdown so well. And what I was seeing yesterday was a culmination of that. Just people not knowing how to handle stuff. Um, Fundamentally, who we have become is this group of, they're doing something stupid and we have to pretend like that's not happening. And no, I'm not willing to play that game with you. If you're going to do something stupid, expect someone to go, "Hey, idiot, why? Why are we dealing with you? This is not what we need." This, for all the parents out there who homeschooled, and for all the teachers that didn't have that moment with their kids, my heart truly goes out to you. Those kids missed you. They mightn't have missed you in the set. You were the third parent that we didn't know that we needed. You were the one helping with the discipline through the week. You were the one educating us through the week. You're the one teaching us, how to do this thing. When we all became at-home teachers, that wasn't part of the deal. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure this isn't how this is supposed to go. I want to thank every single teacher that made these last couple of years possible. And if you don't know it, you did an incredible job. My daughter and son were both enduring it at a hyperbolic pace. My eldest in uni, my littlest in high school. And I was already at a point that I couldn't catch up. You ever seen high schoolers' textbooks? You look at them and you're like, dude, this is like a whole nother language. We are not playing. So I was already out of my element. And I already had no business being there. But my eldest was my rescuer. He'd come along and he was like, Mum, I know you don't get it. Here. And I talk about these really personal things because surely this was going on in everyone's homes. Surely there was like a mum like drinking wine at lunchtime trying to deal with the mental processes of trying to read a high schooler's textbook. It's complex, and then it's all online, and then you're screaming at the internet as to why it won't do the thing that you wanted it to do. And my poor children endured that. They endured my very old hands going, hey, make it do the thing, make it do the thing. And I mean, we talk about that. We talk about this regularly. Whenever something doesn't work in my home, my children are the one who have to endure that. They have to hear, well, where'd it go horribly wrong, Mum? What did you touch? And I don't think I've touched anything. Meanwhile, in that whole system, I've actually touched half a dozen settings that I should not have touched. And they are hysterically laughing at me like, you're an idiot. I'm like, okay, I'll own that. Okay, fair call. How could we get to a point where idiots walked to the streets and protested in amongst all of this, just as everyone's lives were starting to feel a semblance of normal? How could that not make you crazy? Just as we were doing normal things with our kids, when we couldn't have those normal birthdays, the big family that could see the kids. Do you know I could drive my daughter around to several different homes in that process? Lots of the family got to see her. And I'm eternally grateful for that. I never ever thought that there'd be a moment where that wouldn't be a thing. But I tell you what, I've appreciated it even more. And these idiots took it away in like a few seconds of me enjoying this semblance of amazingness with her. You know, I don't go out a lot. Like most of you, you're probably just trying to go to work, come home, and get everyone organised. So there's no real moment for you. So when you get it, you don't want to see a marching band of idiots walking down the road demanding that they be let free in a non-lockdown time. So now that I've definitely drawn that story out way more than anyone would have wanted, let's get down to what today is. Today is about you. It's about what you need. And about these protests that definitely shouldn't have been happening. We are this close to Christmas. Now, if you got kids at home, you know it's a smidgen closer than what you'd like right now. You've got ridiculous requests. And you're not really sure if you can order that thing right on time. Well, maybe that's just me and I'm a little bit disorganized. Now I'm freaking out. Yes, that's real. I freaked out. Some of them have got little charts on the board going, that's so many days. Yeah. So that's my world. Let's enter yours and let's see how it faced the nation, because that's super important. So I'm going to share my screen with you and we're going to read along to see just how awful this week was. And I'd like to say that there's a moment of like greatness in this, but I think the only big highlight was when Dan Andrews finally called everything out for what it is. A massive hate fest culminated by a prime minister who did not have the gumption to tell these idiots to go home. Fundamentally, that's what we needed to hear. And if you weren't sure about that, I'm telling you now, you needed to tell them to go home. I'm related to one such idiot distantly. Well, not their blood, but I don't see them much. So I think a lot of my frustration of yesterday was because I actually know one of these idiots personally. Um, and that's hard. It's hard waking up and knowing you're going to have to contact these people for certain things, for your kids, for you. And I think that's why it's so ingrained in me, the frustration. Because I thought today, no politics, not even going to pick up my phone. It's just going to be me and her and the rest of the family. And I'm going to do this city thing, which I don't do. And I don't do well. I don't do people well, like lots of people hanging around me. So let's get on to this sharing screen thing. So, as you can see, I've got a bucket load of tabs up. Here's where we are at. Oh, hold on. Just before I get on to that, let's do it this way. I think it's this way. Oh, we're still testing out how to do this. Alrighty. Does anyone know that there were counter protests yesterday? Well, if the idiots thought that they were going to get away unnoticed, there were people saying, no, you're an idiot. And we're going to let you know. They were pretty well masked up people. And they were letting the far right know. Pretty unacceptable. Thousands hit the streets in Melbourne chanting "Sack Premier Dan Andrews," holding up an anti-vaccination sign as a counter-rally protested the growth of the far-right city. Now, this comes on a huge backdrop of dangerous rhetoric from the Murdoch press. If you're not familiar with just how dangerous the Murdoch press is, let me just give you a 411. Here's where we're at. They have spoon-fed these idiots with the idea that they're intelligent and that they have the right to do this. Yes, they have the personal freedom to go and spread a deadly virus. Yes, you heard that right. They were told from the Murdoch entities this is something that they're really allowed to do. Okay. Melburnians flooded to the streets on Saturday. Some were protesting against a range of COVID-19 measures, including the state's pandemic bill, and counter-protesters taking a stand. Now, what day was that? Because I know that there's a few. It should say. It doesn't say which day, but I know that the one in Brisbane was yesterday. Melburnians flooded the streets. That was Saturday. Yeah. It comes as the state recorded 1,166 new cases of COVID-19, 5 deaths. Now, keep in mind, when you're saying 1 death, it's truly horrendous. When you're saying 5 from a disease that if you're vaccinated, the chances of it killing you is really, really low. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying the survival rate's way, way better. And the evidence backs that up time after time after time. Victorian child under 10 becoming Australia's youngest person to die with the virus. You idiots. When you're all running around and pretending like you need to be mass groups and unmasked and everything. The backdrop is a 10-year-old dying. Damn. These protests against the pandemic legislation and vaccination mandates chanted, "Sack Dan Andrews, kill the bill." They marched down the streets of central Melbourne. In a crowd, there were various signs that referred to the baseless QAnon conspiracy theories, Trump flags, and waved at protesters. I seen a couple yesterday. Look, I want to be straight with you. Seeing those idiots just made you realise we can't have the Conservatives defunding our education any further. Howard did an amazing job of making sure that people didn't come out with the education they deserved. and only the very few got what they needed from it. A lot of private schools benefited from his uh, funding. In the counter protest group and anti pandemic bill, demonstrators were separated. Oh, I don't even know what that is. Now, that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the counter protesters and then protesters being out there. And it, got to tell you, there would be no freaking counter protests if the idiots weren't out there protesting against something that they don't know anything about. Did any of them read the legislation? Did it occur to them to do it? Did it occur to them while they were building the noose thing to just not do that? My one question to idiots in support of this group: did it feel like you won the day, or does it really make you look like the idiots that you looked like? Because I'm going to share later on how it was a massive fail for you and how Murdoch didn't really win out at the end of the day. The counter protest organised by the Campaign Against Racism. Dude, on the back of the Rittenhouse thing, which we're going to talk about later. Do not think that we are immune from that stuff here. The USA slowly creeps its way into our space. I do not want any illusion about what that means. There is not an illusion about what this means anymore. They're more violent, they're dangerous, and they will harm you. The counter protests that happened could have put a lot of people at risk. These people had nooses. The anti-vaxxers, you can't hide. You got Nazis on your side. The group of counter protesters chanted as they made their way through the city. When white supremacy meets stupidity, it's basically how it played out. Counter protesters then headed into Melbourne Park Hotel, where asylum seekers and refugees are currently being detained by the Australian government. An expressive solidarity. See? Even when they're already like being awesome and saying, hey, you probably shouldn't be here, they do the awesome thing of standing up for refugees while they're at it. Victoria Police made one arrest, with a spokesperson saying that the protest was peaceful despite significant numbers in attendance. The protests in Melbourne come as the Victorian government continues negotiation with crossbenchers to pass its pandemic legislation. I think it already did pass, from what I understand. Anti-pandemic bill pass. Heavy police presence around the CBD. The so-called Worldwide Freedom Rally saw protesters turn up in cities across Australia, including Brisbane, Adelaide, Sydney and Perth. Darwin spruiking anti-vaccination messages. I mean, really? Come on. This is how they want it. Okay. Craig Kelly. Oh, the guy who sends out annoying text, and as we discussed last week, has most of their ads pulled because not the brightest cookie in the tin. They've lost a lot of money. They were met with chants of Kelly, Kelly, Kelly. When we have governments that adopt vaccine passports, we're no longer free. Do you know in many countries that you go to, you need a vaccine idiot? Has he ever left the country? Like, does he not know that you need certain vaccinations? One would say I'm cynical that he doesn't know that. But then he's an idiot. So let's get clear about what he does and doesn't know. My guess is he freaking knows. Okay. When the New South Wales police made no arrests in Sydney, where they said up to 10,000 people attended in the protests in the CBD and another 120 gathered in a protest in Newtown. Overall, the protests concluded peacefully with minimal disruption to the community. So the vast majority of people complied with police directions. Protesters gathered in Brisbane. The state reported no new case of COVID-19. Yeah, do you know why? Because we have an intelligent government that makes sure that things keep themselves in balance. She doesn't just let it go crazy. No, she's like, she's not rooting for the virus to win. You look at what Gladys did. It was almost like she chanted the whole thing on from the Ruby Princess saga on. Tensions ignited at the rally where the main crowd chanted "Hang." I can't even repeat that. This is. I mean, I know I'm not afraid to say four-letter words, but not in relation to her. This isn't like. I would essentially say that she saved our nation, parts of it anyway, the best that she could. Queensland. I live in a place where it's middle class families, but there's a fair few low social economic, and most of them wouldn't have survived. There's no way I would have if this thing had been able to do its thing like it did in New South Wales and more like the American experiment that drastically failed. Not long after the speaker asked a man with a noose to get rid of it, saying we don't want that, he reiterating that it was a peaceful protest. So peaceful that someone thought to bring a freaking noose. Comes after Queensland MP Brittany Lagua contacted police after she and other members received an email with threats of terrorism, extremism, and violence. Fantastic! So now they're just not. Doesn't this have like the Gretchen Whitmer feel? If you don't know, there was a governor in America, Gretchen Whitmer. They were trying to kidnap her. And the idiots were very close, but someone obviously had a bit of a conscience about it and told. And got a bit scared when it got a bit real, which does happen. I mean, not everyone has the moment of seeing it through the lens of it, the whole partisan view. That screams to me like what happened in America. And do not disconnect that reality from what happened there to what happened here. Just because it hasn't gotten as violent, don't think it won't. Do not think that these people aren't violent. They had nooses. Remember the January 6th thing in the States? They're not kidding. They injured a lot of police and a lot of things went horribly wrong. I unequivocally condemn these threats of violence and terrorism. This is not a peaceful protest. In condemnation of the threats of violence from anti-vaccine protesters in Melbourne has grown since the anti-vaccination protests in Melbourne last weekend. A video emerged on social media that showed protesters gathered around the gallows chanting "Kill Dan Andrews." Dude, they made there was gallows. Like, they're not kidding. They aren't mucking around with you. Do not think that these people are kidding. Just imagine, if you will, if Peter Dutton did his job and actually used the fixated persons unit to go after the idiots that did this instead of friendly Geordies. Now I'm trying to be calm and freaking rational. But how calm can you be when you know that they had a noose? Friendly Geordies tells jokes that offends John Barilaro, and they're like, no, we need the anti-terror group. If it didn't, you couldn't feel that vibe of this is real and they're not going to stop. That was your moment. That was your moment, Peter Dutton, to get your people in there to tell them no news, no threatening people. I mean, I don't even think he's made a statement. The guy that's so-called worried about terrorism but won't address the white supremacy moment? Are you kidding me? That was the moment we should have had more. We deserve more. Okay. This isn't just... If this happened to Gladys Berejiklian, just spitballing it out there, like legit. If this happened to Gladys Berejiklian, or let's just say that we did it to, not we, because we wouldn't be this stupid, but imagine if something happened to John Barilaro. I'm not saying it should, but just imagine if there was a real threat to these people. No. If you attack the left, it seems fine. If you go after them, you get the fixated persons unit for telling a joke. That's not even close to how the justice system works, FYI. Hence why they're going to have to take it all down. Do not think that this is how it should work. It shouldn't be just you did it to a lefty tells a joke, the police turn up. If the right has a noose, they get to walk. That's not democracy. They're threatening Dan Andrews and his wife, his lovely wife, who's probably just wanting to get on with her day and just wanting to see him safe. Now, I'm going to get into it at what Dan Andrews said about all of this and Anna and everyone else. I wouldn't wonder you're pulling and they're discussing political criminal behaviour, a small number of people to detract away from the amazing job so many Victorians have done. And you know what, Victoria, you've done amazing. Do not let this be the moment where they get to take that from you. You did good. Despite the New South Wales sabotaging you at every moment to try and skip the border or do what Lyle Sheldon didn't do, from Queensland, a sneaky run into New South Wales and think, I got away with it. No, it's not genius. This was not a genius brain moment. But let's talk about why that's such a big deal. Because this is how much they feel entitled to get away with. This is where they think they get their mark. This is where their butter is bred best, with the crazies. They think that if they permeate this enough, why do you think they're fine with Craig Kelly going over to Palmer United? They know that Craig Kelly was too crazy to mainstream liberalism. But they know that the Palmer United Party is going to hand them the votes to get over the line. So a vote for Clive Palmer and his crazy crew is a vote for more of this. Do not disattach the moment of this messaging. It is clear, it's unequivocal, and if you would like to click the link and come up and discuss how you think that that's a wrong thing, I invite that. Because this is where we are. I'm going to quickly check on that bot while we're here. And I think we want to make it absolutely feel what this moment feels like. This moment feels and looks like terrorism. We are being terrorized into their position. You don't show up with nooses if you're not being terrorist-like. So do not think that this is something that I'm going to just sit here and pretend like it didn't happen. These leaders have worked so hard. Nearly 800,000 Americans are dead from a totally preventable disease. Not everyone was going to come out of this skin free. But my God, this death rate did not have to be this bad for anyone. So don't come at me with the whole idea that this is where you wanted to be. You didn't. These people did not want to be in good faith. All right, let's address this. We are talking about the freedom of marches around the world. Over 1 million in Australia, of all types of people from all political backgrounds. I know you don't like this, but I was at the march in Port Macquarie. Now, I wish I could see your name, whoever wrote this, because I can't see the name. And most were lefties and don't want this. We're being terrorized by the government, and some of you can't see it. Let's put that. Oh, actually, let's not hide. Let's put this front and center, because your voice matters just as much as mine. Just because I've got the mic doesn't mean that your voice isn't just as important. I would like to have that open dialogue. Yeah, there probably were lefties that were convinced that this was an acceptable way to behave. The people turning up with nooses was totally appropriate. But I'm here to address you in particular. Anytime that you affiliate yourselves with people threatening other people, that's no longer a peaceful protest. Anytime that you're claiming this is an anti lockdown measure when you're not actually in lockdown, that's idiocy. Now, I really, really, really want to have that dialogue with you so you understand my position. So that's why I want to make sure that you get to see that if you want to come up, you have the freedom to do so. You can click the link at any time, and I'm willing to talk it out with you. Because this is too big not to. This is such a situation that we can't ignore. I definitely think that we need to address this very thing. Because I'm sure a lot of the left were convinced that something was being ripped away from them. Why not? And I think the ultimate question is, why aren't they calling this terrorism? If we had a noose and a picture of, say, one of the right, they definitely wouldn't hold back. That isn't like a hyperbolic thing to say. Now, we definitely know that that's how they treat it, because we see what they do when they feel any slight critique. What happened to Friendly Geordies over jokes? They were already so butthurt that they needed to send the fixated persons unit. So we know that they over-exaggerate their positions. That's not the way that democracy should work ever. I understand that that there would have been people that didn't have bad intentions. But if you went there with them, the intent was bad. If you're hanging around people that have a noose in your background and you got your kids there, my God, you've got a lot of self-reflection. Because This is who we are. This is who you want to show your kids that is an acceptable set of behaviors to walk by. I'm sure that at every moment of this, it feels like something was taken from you. And I'm sure at times when you had your kids screaming in your ears and you're like, we can't really go out, there really is a lockdown and there's some really serious stuff going on. Maybe because we didn't get to feel it like the US did. Maybe because we insulated ourselves so much that we didn't see this. We didn't. Okay, let's address that. Let's have that dialogue. There was a lot of them. And not all of them had nooses, no. But if you have 5 people with a noose and 100,000 that didn't, and they're still walking with the people that had the noose, what do you think the law calls that? It's called guilt by association, right? So you don't get to walk away from this hands clean. That's not how this gets to go down. If you know criminal activity is going on, you're not having a peaceful protest. And what the hell were you protesting? You were protesting a health moment, something to keep you alive, something. I want this dialogue with you. I want you to feel all sorts of things. I want you to be just as passionate against me as for me. Why? Because I believe it's healthy. I believe that if you're coming out to see me, it means that we're having the right discussions about where we are at. I have no doubt that there might have been good people, but don't walk your kids and you into a situation where you know that you're good people and this stuff is going on. Don't confuse what should have been a moment of public health and confuse it with neo-Nazis with nooses, because that's what that was. Now, okay, BLM does. Lots of marches do. I agree with you. Lots of marches have an element to it that can be violent. I did not attend one of those rallies, but I definitely showed from my home base that I think Black people should have rights. Because at the time we were in lockdown and there was a lot going on. There can be very, very violent protests. A lot of civil rights were gained through a lot of violent protests. You can't look at a Martin Luther King one and say that they were all peaceful. It predominantly wasn't peaceful because the police were very, very, very aggressive. If we look through history, there is a big history behind that. But you're conflating a protest about an anti-lockdown protest while you're not in lockdown. You're protesting against health measures. Like, do you not see the difference? Through actual civil rights, like Black people being treated as equal to, hey, we're not in lockdown, but we're going to protest anti-lockdown measures. And, oh, by the way, healthcare measures should be ignored. Like, at what point do you not see how insane that sounds? No one is saying that you don't have the right to protest. I had no issue with you looking like idiots going, hey, we're at an anti-lockdown protest and we're not in lockdown. I had no issue with you protesting a bill. And some of these points are made on very solid ground, which is why I invite that. Civil rights is not equality, it's the right of freedom to choose your own path. You do. But don't do it associating with idiots with nooses. If you know that's going on, you damn well better leave. The moment you know that they're calling to hang people, you're like, no, I'm out. I'm gone. And I mean, here's the thing. We're intelligent enough to know that difference. I can't say that if I was in something that I've been to environmental protests, many of them. Don't tarnish the other million with the same brush. If you're seeing it and you're around it, you're that brush. You are walking in unison with it. Do not get disillusioned with the idea that you can now separate yourselves from the idiots with nooses. You can't. This wasn't like a few people. This was a white supremacy chant. This was Murdoch pushing this into the political space, and it exploded. Bang, that's what you got. You bought this. And no, you want to talk about sensational? Sensational is walking in unison with people that do it. And then pretending like you weren't part of that element of it. This cannot be the political discourse you should associate yourself with. So the people marching in Sydney were not connected to the people marching in Melbourne. How are they walking in step with the nooses in Melbourne? Because they did this nationwide. It happened here in Brisbane. It happened everywhere. These same sorts of people were everywhere. And their element and their Murdoch hysteria became the fundamental breeding ground for this type of thing. But I digress to the idea that somehow you can disattach yourself from the main focus. I mean, while we're talking about where that's at, right? Okay. I have something else here. Just give me a second. Hold on, that's another story. Just give me a sec. I'm going to share my screen with you. And when I do it, I want you to understand how serious this thing is. This is what you bought. These are the headlines you bought. You didn't just miraculously have that bigger people coming out in some hyperbolic moment. No, it was driven by a madman willing to bring this country down. This is not normal. What part of normal do you want to make this? Now, I gather that you're going to want to respond to this. Do you think that crowd would have been as big if this idiot had had his claws into so many people? My guess is no. And why do I think that? Because he permeated the most hateful thing that this country has ever seen. This isn't us. You don't want it to be us. Why do I want better? Because I believe you're worth it. If I was at an environmental protest and someone had a noose, you're damn right I'm walking away. If I had someone telling them, we're going to hang the Premier, You're damn right I'm walking away. If I'm at a education protest, which I've been to try and get more funding for the kids, which, if you know me personally or just through here, you'll understand. I do this a lot. I talk about what people need. You're damn right. They showed an ounce of violence, I'm out. It's not the way through this. Same-sex marriage didn't get passed because people were violent. Many other things don't get done this way. I get it. We hate the LNP, but we can't go on hating everyone. The marches, yes, they were about civil rights. And we confuse a couple of people with sensational media. What is going on in our country or around the world with passport restrictions and travel movement? Okay, let's address it. Passports. How many countries do you know that you need to go to where you need a certain amount of vaccinations? Do you know which kind? Do you know that there is a regimen that you have to follow to go to a lot of places? What makes COVID-19 this particular one where everyone has to get it? It's not just Australia dictating this. This is the world saying, hey, we don't want this disease hanging around. It's done a lot of damage. So if you were to visit overseas countries, you would have to make sure that you get rabies and all that kind of stuff. You would need to get like hepatitis things and all sorts. You need to do certain things to go overseas. This is just another one thrown in the mix. Don't get confused about what this means. You have a right to civil rights. No one is taking anything extra off you. It's just another jab. And another way, and you need to prove that you've done it with ASIO or some other agency around the world. So don't get you caught up in the idea. If you take your pet with you, what does it need to have? So even your pet is held to a high standard. It's held in a quarantine facility for a while and certain things need to happen. They're not taking anything from you. They never did. So don't play with me right now when we're talking about a very serious thing. You're better than that debate. You know that. We all do. If anyone has ever gone somewhere, I can't even say I go in between certain states. I can't even bring certain fruits because of a fruit fly thing. I don't know. I got a warning about it and told not to do it again, and I had a banana in my bag. It was bad. And I mean, we do this for all sorts of reasons. This isn't the thing that you want to be all caught up in. I get it. Civil rights are super duper important, and you shouldn't stop fighting for it. But this isn't the hill that you want to be on for this. I guarantee you there's going to be a moment where this is going to mean something. And if you're attending a anti-lockdown march when there's no lockdown, it kind of makes protesting look stupid. That's just reality. And if you're protesting against vaccinations, given the mad regime that we already have, where kids, when you're going to school and you're getting your kids booster shots and everything else, if we're already to get into daycare and then into school, if we already have these systems in place, if you're in certain healthcare and everything, there's already a vaccine regimen. So don't get twisted. Don't get it twisted with me. Because that's important. All of that context matters. And I'm willing to have that moment with you. I think that this is why I invite people to come and talk to me about it. And I think it's important that you understand where your civil rights start and it encroaches on other people, that's where it stops. You do not have the right to spread a deadly disease. Nobody does. And by not letting you do it isn't a civil rights encroachment. We've done this before. History shows us that we've done this before, just not as good. You know, we didn't have phones where we could whinge to each other and then serenade each other on balconies and connect with loved ones. I still got to see people with this thing. My phone was my world. And can I actually see your name, the person making these comments? Because I feel like just calling you Facebook user is kind of derogatory. And I'd like to actually communicate with someone. Because being hidden is not what I do. And I don't think you should either. You're proud enough to go to a march. Let me know what, who I'm addressing. Let's not get into the science of COVID or the science of vaccines. Let's just talk about freedom of choice and why millions of people around the world are marching. Okay. The science of COVID is exactly where we needed to be having that debate. If you're not willing to weigh into the vaccination and the lockdowns and all that kind of thing, why are you out there protesting? Because they're protesting against exactly that. What were you doing there? What was the point in making this the thing? Okay. I just wanted it to be live on air so people knew how this was playing out. Look, this isn't how I planned it being. You didn't plan it. I didn't plan it. Look. Let me look you straight up. I'd never heard about pandemics like this. I didn't know that we did this before. I didn't know that we fast-tracked other vaccines before. I didn't know that it only took 7 months for the polio vaccine to do its thing. I didn't know smallpox was mandated for everyone and that the military was the first to receive it. These are all things that I learnt. And I learnt hard and fast. And I learnt that because of this situation. Much like how I learnt much more in homeschooling. This is a moment of great learning. We don't have to be the way of making sure that each voice isn't heard. You have an important voice. And I'm glad that you shared it with me. But understand that this has to come with a great amount of knowledge. And I am not even done yet learning more about pandemics, education, why I can't make herbs grow, and many more things. This discussion isn't done in a bubble. It's just not. This isn't a vaccine trial. This is one of the largest tested vaccines that there's ever been. The largest pool, the largest sign-ups. Look, my whole family has had double jabs, except for one in my immediate home. And I've heard a lot of these talking points. Like I said, I'm related to one particular family member that I'm really struggling with. And I don't know how to have these conversations with you. As much as I believe in freedoms, I want to leave that up and all that sort of stuff. And I know you're scared. A lot of us are scared. We hadn't been through this before. It was new and it was scary and we didn't know what to do. We became virologists and teachers all in one hit. And it didn't happen overnight, but it sure felt like it did. One minute I was walking to the shop fine with the kids, and next minute we were all wearing masks and told that you couldn't travel 5 kilometers outside. I wasn't this huge outdoorsy person anyway, but even I felt it. My kids were fine. They had Xboxes and stuff, and my oldest was helping out a lot, and I really, really feel like I suffered little bits through this too. Not in a way that makes it sound like, oh, poor me. I mean, like, dude, I love my kids' teachers more. And I love that time with my family. I love the fact that I could drive my daughter around yesterday to see all the family for her birthday. I love the fact that we could, all the things that I learned not to appreciate. I understand this point. So now you understand why many people are marching. They're not all freaks. They're concerned about why they're trying to make good decisions, about being told by other people what you got to do, what you must do. Look, I get it. No one likes to be told, hey, sit home and just go to work and then come home and deal with the kids and the chaos, and they've got no social outlet and you've got no social outlet, and you'd like that Friday night glass of wine with your girlfriends. And prospectively, I'd like my husband to be off doing his own thing, because hell, if he didn't get that and I didn't get that, we're a little bit nutty. And we had a little bit of where, we were each finding separate corners of the house, and it got really weird there for a bit. And it felt weird. It felt uncomfortable. What part of you was comfortable with that? When you're seeking out different parts of the house, and if your house wasn't that big, I had a luxury of having a spare room where I could escape my office. This is where I do this now. He had his garage, which I took up half of, not going to lie. So he really didn't have much escape from me, and I think he needed it, because while I'm this crazy lefty in my house, he didn't share that with me. I'm more comfortable in that element too. I'm way more comfortable attacking Murdoch. Who do you think was behind these? This wasn't you. You weren't the bright spark who thought it'd be the great idea to march in the middle of the street with nooses and scream, hang Dean Andrews and Anastasia. Of course that wasn't you. And I know that a lot of lefties went. The idea was permeated out of this idea that something was being taken from you, when I just didn't want your life to be taken because of a pandemic. That's why I appealed to you. That's why I wanted you to hear from me. That's why I wanted the interaction. Look, I had the worst kind of moment. I had teenagers looking at me constantly, berating the very idea that I was pro all of this, as they're nagging in my ear about all the things that I can't do with technology, while I'm talking to them about this very kind of setup that they're doing with their schools. While they're interfacing with some kid making a clicky sound in the background, and there's no teacher to discipline this, because how does the teacher discipline the kid over a screen? There was all of that. Damn, there was all of that. And I'm there with you. Do not think for a moment that I'm not pro-freedom or pro-choice. Hell, you tell a woman that she doesn't have a right to choose how she wants to live, I'm there, standing there beside you. You tell an LGBTIQ person that they can't be who they need to be, I'm there right beside you. You tell anyone in our Indigenous community or any other community that they don't get the right to just be them and wear what they want to wear, I'm there beside you. You tell, kids that they don't have a voice in our climate activism, I'm there with you. I've always been there with you. There won't be a time when I'm not. Don't get shaded into the idea that this was something being ripped out of your hand. It was scary. There wasn't a moment where I have this, on a more personal note, I have a partner that is high risk. I'm not exactly in the greatest health myself, but my partner, he's an extra special one. And I was the only one leaving the house. So I was the only one seeing the outside, like physically, like with the kids and Pete, they could go to the backyard. And I was the only one heading to the shops, masking up, doing all that stuff. You know, I was the only one that was interacting with the public. So I was the only one that could see how serious things were getting. And they didn't mind that right up until it got a bit bonkers and it had moments where it opened and then closed and open. That's when things got a bit real. And when the kids started at school again, then it stopped. That's when their frustrations become more permanent. And I was starting to hear things that were just crazy town kind of stuff. Don't get persuaded into the idea that we didn't feel it too. The whole country did with you. There isn't a moment where I don't think that people don't have a right or a reason to be out and about. But for people like me and my partner, at that time it was really needed. You stayed home to keep us all alive. I know that it was painful. And I know that you're concerned about civil rights. And I know you're concerned about how quick this happened. Okay. What about my freedom? My freedom to live in a society free of mob rule. These sorry Bena Yobos parading their ignorance around based on witch doctors' science. How many homeless people did these thugs pass by? Have they ever taken to the street to protest a single humanitarian cause? Selfish brats is what they are. Who were probably incapable of understanding credible scientific advice anyway. Any lefty associating with them, let alone protesting with them, should be ashamed of them. And I think that's where rubber meets the road. There were real homeless people out there. There was a man that I was trying to give money to yesterday that Peter was grabbing my arm and saying, if you do that again, I'm going to be really mad. The reason he was mad was because it looked a little bit sketchy what I was trying to do, and I was sort of dropping things along my way, and I was being a bit clumsy, and I feel it too. The homeless was real. They're still real. Was anyone thinking about how they were going to come through this pandemic? How they were going to sanitize? Where their safe space was? That's the whole point of marching, is that you show your belief and no one has taken away from your belief. I guess we need to make sure we don't take away from people's belief that were marching yesterday. There were counter protesters. Understand that I'm not coming from, I think that if we need to be counter protesting people that are against public health, something really went wrong with our education. Understand, do not get this confused with where my messaging is at. We are, by and large, a group of people that are going to believe different things at different times. But if you're out there saying, hey, I'm against health and I have the right to protest that, and I've got a banner and a noose, dude, come on. You know, I know you personally didn't have them. The people that you're walking with did. And it didn't look great. And that's where the rubber meets the road. You cannot have that. There is a whole bunch of people that got caught up in something that I'm not sure that they knew how big this thing was and who was cultivating the biggest hate. You might have been there for a different reason. But the main point was to be against the premiers who did the right thing. And I'm going to get to another point about that because do you realize that this vaccine mandate was put in place in 2015? Do you know that the Conservatives put a vaccine mandate in place while Scott Morrison is happy to tip his hat, happy to, and attack these premiers? Remember, he put that vaccine mandate in place. He's the one who first initiated most of how this was discussed. So if he wants to play both sides now and pretend like, God damn it, I need to be as Trumpy as possible, there's no votes in that here. You're going to find a very few subset people that are like, I'm in. Don't fully get what he did. Here we go. No one said they're against health. Can we go down that rabbit hole? COVID science, health, and vaccine science. We're talking about the civil rights and the people to march, whether I agree or don't agree. Right. But why are you out there? What was the point? To say that someone took something from you? For what reason? How did they take off you? Because if you didn't notice, this isn't normal. This is a pandemic. Nothing about this can be normalized or underplayed or undersold to you. You're better than that type of structural moment. And I know damn well where we're at with this. This is nothing like we've ever been through before. You will never ever feel like this again. I promise you that. But I'm more concerned with Peter Dutton having this supercell of agencies like ASIO and the AFP and loads of other agencies banded into one. Do you know what I'm not worried about? Premiers saying, hey, you know what? There's a pretty deadly thing going on right now. And let's deal with this. Look, I know lots of people can't hang around for the whole thing. This does go for a long time. But now that we're at that point, I know that this was hard for a lot of you. And I'm willing to have these talks. But let's not get twisted about where we're at. I'm going to go sharing the screen again, and I'm going to check back in with your comments because I think it's important. And your voice is just as important as mine. Just because I've got the mic doesn't mean anything. Okay. Other places around the world are struggling too. The World Health Organization has warned Europe could see 500,000 COVID-19 deaths by March 2022. As the infection rates soar in a number of countries. I don't know what that noise was. Lots of things are making noise. This is who it was done for. Make no mistake, these people weren't out because they had genuine concerns. They were out because a prime minister told them with a Murdoch entity that their They were out there for some sort of civil rights thing. And it just didn't play out like that. West Australian Premier Mark McGowan accused Scott Morrison of dog whistling against the anti-vaccination terrorists after the Prime Minister spoke out against the broad vaccine mandates on Thursday. You mean the mandates that he brought out in 2015, no jab, no pay? His government. If you want to be baby smooth brain about it, I take that back. Baby's quite intelligent. If you want to have a low IQ moment about this, a smooth brain moment where you don't think about who wields the most power in terms of federal mandating, just remember it's their government that made it. Asked at a press conference Thursday what he thought about the protests in Melbourne advocating for violence against Premier Dan Andrews, Mr. Morrison said such behaviour had no place in Australia. However, in the same breath, he acknowledged Australians are frustrated with governments telling them what to do. And it was time for states to step back. Yeah, because he had our interests best at heart, didn't he? He showed real interest for you over this pandemic. Australians have, he couldn't even get the vaccine on time. He had an opportunity to do this right, and he didn't. He had an opportunity, to lock down right. Instead, he pretended like South Australia wasn't doing what Victoria was doing. He pretended like Victoria didn't do the same thing as Tasmania. And he pretended like New South Wales didn't have to do the same thing. And when he did, and it turned out to be the longest one, my God, he had to be like a dog with its tail between its legs. He knew damn well. Do not get confused about what this is. My friends, I tell you this from a place of good faith. This does not come without some major problems within our social economic statuses. If you were poor, you had a rougher time during the pandemic. If you were rich, you had hundreds of acres to play on. And you had kids that could do virtual tours and tutoring and all that kind of stuff. There were definitely advantages to the rich in this. They benefited the most out of this pandemic. Do not get it twisted. They were the ones that were buying up stocks when the dip was low. They were the one that were partaking in hysteria of big buy-up, so you would have to pay more for things in that middle process. Do not get it twisted. And whose side do you think Scott Morrison was on? Do you think he was on your side as you protested? Oh, hell no. He just wants the chaos to make him into a vote. He doesn't care. He knows he's double vaxxed and booster shotted. He knows damn well the benefits to all of this. He just wants to be Trumpy about it and pretend like he can sit on the frickin' fence. No, we are way past that point. Way past that point. And let's not get confused about exactly that. You don't get to have it like this. And if you're trying to, you're coming from a bad faith angle. Mr. Morrison criticised businesses can make their own choices under the law, but we're not about telling them what to do or telling Australians what to do. A president in the United States tried that. It didn't win him an election. In fact, it was such a low blow, and there was so much death in this sort of rhetoric that it didn't go well. Scott Morrison is behind in the polls, so now he gets desperate. If he wasn't already shaking the hand of a madman like Trump, he just tipped his hat, opened up his jacket pocket, and said, "Come on in." He just invited the worst of us into one of the most awful moments of his mind. I'm sure he didn't consult his wife while he was having these manic moments, like other times when he says he's having conversations with her. This is outrageous. What are we talking about here? We're talking about health and living a lifestyle. You gave up a year or so. Your life will be all about returning to normal this Christmas. We all learned how to be a little bit more advanced than what we planned. A lot of us benefited from this in ways that we can never ever take back. I've learned how to read a Year 9 textbook. My God, my brain hurts. Year 9's pretty hard, you know. It's not like when I did it. I don't know if that's a saying that's a stain against my own education or a boost to hers or somewhere in the middle. But I wouldn't change any of it, not for a second. I bonded with her. I understood her. I screamed. I found sanctuaries in my home that I never knew I had. In fact, there were places I went to that I don't even think I sat in before. Self-reflection became my key, my escape, my world-being. I found more about myself in this past year and a half. I started looking at life goals and how I plan to spend the rest of it once the kids do their own thing. And believe me, they're going to do their own thing. My eldest is already in the middle of all this. He's done his own thing, and girls are a little bit quicker about this kind of thing generally. And my daughter's quite the freedom-loving kid, and I don't see me being able to keep her as long as I'd like either. But I digress. Mr. McGowan and his family have been bombarded with threats since the vaccine mandate announcement. He's also been forced to close his electorate office. The staff were sent rape threats. Dude, they sent him rape threats. Yeah, but you were just protesting, right? All your freedoms are under attack. They threatened a freaking premier. This is not. No. Last week, a man allegedly tried to have an old British armour war vehicle with a fake gun turret dropped off to McGowan's electorate office. Oh yeah, all in jest, right? We're all just kidding, haha. No, these are the people Scott Morrison tipped his hat to. Congrats, idiots. You tied yourself to that. Premier said Mr. Morrison's comments were unhelpful. There should not be any weasel words. There should be no walking on both sides of the fence. You condemn it and you support each of us. That's why he's trying to get people vaccinated across the country. Look, let's not play cool with this. Dude, they threaten to rape people. Like, no. I've never, ever had someone say something that abhorrent to me. No one has ever threatened my life. Not like that. But my God, you could send the anti-terror unit to friendly Geordies, but you couldn't. I don't get the AFP to look at that. Look, I don't know if the AFP's looking into it, but it damn sure it hasn't sounded like it. Has anyone got a statement from Mr. Dutton that I can see? Because I can tell you, I scoured the internet for a little while, and what do you know? I haven't seen a statement yet that looks like he's dealing with this crap. That's unfortunate for him and for our nation. Now, if anyone knows Malcolm Farr from the Insiders, they know that he is a Scott Morrison lover. Morrison is the shallowest, most demonstrably deceitful, self-important, ill-equipped PM in the last 30 years. Oh. Another word salad from Morrison. I couldn't have been clearer in denouncing the protests, conflating denouncing with communicating. You don't need a feud to understand the mixed messaging. This is America. These idiots had the same chance, they had the same goal mind, and they were permeated the same hate. Don't get confused with these people. This is their intent. They're going to do you harm. So walk in a line with them or not. Understand that if you're walking with them, you're walking with this. They intend to harm people. I don't care if they're a group of 5 and you have 500. If the 500 behind them are cheering these people on and not telling them to go away, you're with them. So we're going to get to the part where civil rights meets idiots. And the reason I show you this is because in the middle of a pandemic, we had a civil rights thing going on. Here in America, all across the world, we had real civil rights issues. We have never treated coloured people any worse than what we've never treated them so terrible. Just because we're not hanging them from trees or openly saying the slur words doesn't mean that they're not affected by a very racist justice system, a very racist policing courtroom experience. Even in terms of job network agencies and others. I've seen videos of innocent black men losing their lives because of this stereotype when they call them angry black men coming to get them and their daughters because they've hyperboled this thing as the black person was the biggest thing that you needed to feel. When it was the white man holding the gun telling them that they were slaves or that they couldn't vote or that they needed to be on a different bubbler or a different bus, that couldn't go to a library or be educated. These are how far we've had to come. And you're out there pretending like your freedoms are being ripped away from you because there's a deadly pandemic going around and you're told, hey, you might want to hang at home for a bit. You're going to compare yourselves to these people. You know what real civil rights being ripped away from you feels like. You ever been told that you can't go to a library because of the colour of your skin? You ever been told that you can't be seated on the same bus as someone? Or how about arrested? You ever feel like you're being arrested and they're just extra aggressive because you're black? That's what those people go through. And not just once or twice. This is like a thing all across the world that happens. Look, I'm not even going to sugarcoat this. We don't need people pretending like this pandemic was what was being, and people being told to stay home was a civil rights issue. We need people to understand that there were bigger civil rights issues like the one sitting before you. How a 17-year-old crossed state lines with an illegal gun and AK 47, shot people, and got away with it. He isn't worried about if his civil rights are being encroached upon. Like we're having the same type of debate. We're not even close. It makes what you're doing ridiculous in the light of real civil rights activism. What it means, how it was, and how painful that journey had to be. Remember, all of these rights weren't won in some sort of one moment. It was dug and fought for, and my God, it was hard. White people had to stand with them then too. Not as many did as what we did for the BLM. Not as many people knew how serious this thing was. They considered it normal. The lynchings and all that sort of stuff was normal. They thought it was normal if a black person crossed the bridge that you got the right to kill them and own them and them not being recognized as people. And by God, if you're going to say, oh yeah, but we've gotten so much better, how? How? Because in our Indigenous communities, there's many places where they can't even get a clean glass of water. And why? Because the government allows fracking in the area, which goes into their water systems that they cannot access. Why is their incarceration rate so much higher for children? The biggest in the world. We incarcerate the most Indigenous children. And you're going to pretend like you're on the same level as this. Nah, dude, it's not the same. And if you're going to pretend like you're playing the same footsie game with this, I have some news for you. You're not. Oh, hold on. You're not in the same space. We are not saying they're playing the same game here. We're talking about two different positions in history. On which side you really want to be on? Do you want to be on the guy's side that goes, no, I want the virus to win? Or do you want to be on the side that says, hey, black people need the same rights as I have? You know what? If I'm driving a car and I'm doing 65 in a 60 zone, I don't need to be ripped out of my car, smashed onto the ground, and have my face pummeled. Because that's how those interactions go. And we're all going to pretend like that's the normal day of everyday life. It's not. None of it's normal. So don't get crazy about what this is. Don't think that if a black person killed two white people and injured a third, they would just be walking out of court. That's not how the justice system works. It doesn't work in favor of these people. To give this kid some sort of freedom moment for killing people, what, he's going to pretend like he knew who they were. They're going to sensationalize this kid, post his bail, and pretend like the white supremacists and the Nazi signs that he was pulling was totally legit. These same people are permeated by the Murdoch media. The same people that are running these anti-lockdown things. The same funding. The two tracks are meeting at the middle. The same people that paid for this baby-faced idiot to drive across state lines with an illegal gun and say someone had to take control. It's the same idiot who was like, lockdowns, blah. Do not get confused about where you need to be on this issue. You weren't there to be, civil rightsy. You were there because this idiot, Murdoch, told you people like this kid meant something. That their voice mattered more than, real civil rights movements. That you should feel sorry for a murderer. Don't get confused. There's no ounce of anger that can really portray the sheer. The moment that we're living in isn't new. But God damn it, we're not going to let this be the thing that sets in stone the precedent. We're going to make sure this doesn't happen again. Why are we allies with a country that says, no, you're a good kid? Allies with a country that promotes that level of terrorism. You good with that? Is your conscience clear of that yet? You cool to go on those marches now? The same dude funding those anti-lockdown marches is the same dude that bailed this kid. Murdoch. So fantastic. These were militant white supremacists. They came with guns that they didn't know how to really use. And Kyle had it because he thought it looked cool. You listen to his testimony, it was quite apparent. He knew exactly what he was doing. He pretended to cry on the stand and one tear fell from that kid's face. He didn't feel sorry that he was there. He's now remotely feeling a tiny bit of remorse that he's now might have had to deal with some of the consequences. But even that was too much for the United States to deal with adequately. Now, they have two choices about this. They can either make sure this kid is bankrupted into eternity and sue the family through the civil rights movement, or the federal government can step in because that judge was clearly racist and horrible, and you couldn't call them victims and you couldn't address the very nature of him. You couldn't call his victims victims, but you could call them arsonists and you could call them Antifa. You could call them rioters, but victims, no. He could have a Trump ringtone on the bench. Now, why am I bringing American politics here? Because the same dude who funded this idiot funded those marches. This is what he funded. If I can get my mouse to work. Where is it? He funded that. That's what he funded. And he thought, genius. He thought, I got it, genius. What do those two streams have together? You have extremists that are liking it all the way. Now, this by no means takes away. Why does that message keep appearing? Hate has a cost. To fund this kind of thing, it makes Murdoch quite lucrative. They make a lot of money out of using clicks, out of being this terrible. These people are given massive tax write-offs. And these people these sorts of people get to make a lot of money during the pandemic. They also got to make a lot of money off hate. Don't get it twisted. You were only part of their story. But I want you to know you don't need to be part of their story. You can be your own. Hillbilly, you want to defend someone like Kyle Rittenhouse killing people. Let me just be absolutely clear with you. Let's just make sure that we're unequivocally clear about your position. He didn't attack an unwilling minor. This is a kid with a gun who illegally had it, protecting things that were not his in a place where he should not have been. And let me be fundamentally clear about handing a 17-year-old an AK 47. He's no hero to you. He's a white supremacist that was bailed out by the right wing to permeate hate. You want to go around justifying that? That's on you. But have I got some news for you? It's disgusting. It has no place in rule of law. But somehow that has made sure it was the fundamental foundation of these so-called democracies. White supremacy has overtaken the main stage of that. Now, you can say what I'm saying is lies with absolutely zero substance. I'm cool with that. Do it. But it says more about you than what it does me. Yeah, okay. The child molester that he so-called killed. Did he know that that was a child molester at the time? Or does he just get to point his gun and shoot? And if he gets lucky enough to kill one, that's fine. That's where you're at. The other dude wasn't a child molester. No, but Kyle's mum could take him to a bar and have him hanging white supremacy signs. Any 17-year-old with an illegal gun crossing state lines is not a hero. That's a monster. That's a terrorist. And make no mistake, if that was a BLM person with that gun, and if he had shot people, you wouldn't be calling anyone a hero. No, he had it illegally. It was all illegal. So you can sit there in your tiny little smooth brain moment of let's justify an idiot killing people, and then you can make up whatever rhetoric it is because it was illegal. Show me. I will show you how it was bloody illegal. Give me a moment. I'm just searching for it. So it was illegal that he had it. It was a legal possession that he had that gun. He did not legally own that gun. He was illegally carrying that gun around. What part of illegal didn't you understand? Where did you get the idea that he legally could have it? So you can turn around and you can say, well, I can justify that. You can't. It's just not reality. And he didn't kill criminals. He's a criminal. You can make the justice system to fit white supremacy. That's not good. It was once legal to hang black people. It was once legal to burn them at the stake. And Kyle thinks he got away with doing that. I hope that they sue him into oblivion like they did to O.J. Simpson. One sec. Oh. I don't know what it... Okay. No, it's not. You don't just get to kill people and watch. You do it, your ass goes to jail. You do it, watch this. Because I'm telling you, you want to be stupid and threaten people, stupid people get stupid prizes. And I wouldn't be surprised if the federal government takes it up. Legal expert consider the misdemeanor of the gun charge, which carry up to 9 months jail. Okay. The open carry law is confusingly written. It can be interpreted as a 17-year-olds can openly carry a firearm, as long as they're not short-barreled rifles. He believed that the jury could only convict if prosecutors proved that the barrel on Rittenhouse's rifle is less than 16 inches overall, the length shorter than 26. The AR-15 style rifle that Rittenhouse used to shoot 2 men is a 35-inch long barrel with 16 inches. Under defense questioning, Kenosha police detective said he believed the Smith & Wesson MP15 was standard size, which it turned out it wasn't. The judge's decision, State law says that any person under 18 years of age who possesses or goes with an armed dangerous weapon is guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. So, bam, got you. Now what? Now what? You want to be some hero that thinks that you can do that? Let me tell you, it's not. And no. You want to be that idiot? I just showed you it's not. What mother drives their kid into this? What sort of parental figures does that leave our kids? Now, you can interact with me in any way you choose. You can hate and watch me if you like. I've gotten a few of those. That's cool. But it's not going to change facts. Fact. A 17-year-old killed 2 people and injured a 3rd person for no good reason. Fact. He got away with it because the law wasn't ready for a white supremacist to be funded by the Rupert Murdochs of the world. Fact. Tucker Carlson made a documentary in the middle of that trial to sway the public. No, it's not self-defense. No way is that self-defense. You could see in that video, you could clearly see that that's not self-defense. You can call it whatever you want. That kid didn't lean in with his gun. He leant to grab the gun off the kid that shouldn't have it. Kids shouldn't have guns. Aren't you tired of losing your kids? How many kids are you willing to lose? When's enough enough? How many school shootings are you willing to endure before you go? Dude, they're funded what? Okay, let's go down this stupid rabbit hole. I'm going to show you. You're going to say that this wasn't white supremacy? Okay, idiot. Let's go with that. Let's go with how incredibly stupid that take is. Okay. Fun fact. The police handed the idiot water. He pretended like he was a health aide. The moment he shot people, and they were crying out for help, he ran away like the little baby that he is. And you're going to have to deal in that. You're going to have to deal that he was such a little baby that he pretended to be a paramedic, and when he got hard and he shot a real paramedic, just FYI. These are all things that are easily discoverable. You don't need to have some maybe big brain moment. The killing of George Floyd was in white supremacy. The killing of these 2 people was in white supremacy. Just because he killed white people at a BLM rally doesn't mean that he's not a white supremacist. Because what it is, French say. Okay, it has it here. And if you remember Donald Trump's nice little words to him, egging them on. Right-wing outlets package the fieriest images as evidence of reunions, policies, democratic-run cities, and cities that mainstream media refusal to acknowledge violence. That was all wrapped up in a nice little ball for you little white supremacists playing around in business you have no business being in. If you're not white supremacists, then how come you're openly with the white supremacists? Let me show you. What a white supremacist, bar. Eh? No, he was just flushing white supremacist signs because he's not one, right? He's not that. No, man. No. They're not. No. The reason that even in states that aren't Democrat run, none of what you say is true. None of it. Of course it's not. You know it's not true. You know that this kid was flashing white supremacist signs with people. Yeah, that's not your dude. That's so your dude, man. No, but this isn't wrapped up in white supremacy, is it? He flashed those white supremacy signs. He was at a bar knowing full well he had to face a court for a white supremacist movement that he was a part of. And he thought, hey, I'm smart. I'm going to go to a bar with my mum and drink and flash white supremacist signs. Gee, that really deflates your whole argument, doesn't it? No. This wasn't white supremacy. Each time you say something stupid, I get to make sure that you understand you come out with the baby brain moment that you had. This isn't something you want to do. Australia looked onto this with such disdain that, believe you and me, there will be repercussions to this. If you think that a country like mine wants to be associated with children killers, you have another thing coming. We do not associate with terrorist organizations that support white supremacy. I'm in a country that knows better. It has its elements of racism, but my God, if we were wielding guns in the middle of the street, no matter who you were, there was consequences. You don't just get to walk around with a gun, particularly as a baby face killer. And we don't need backpacks that are bulletproof in this country. Why? Because we don't have this crazy obsession with guns. Now, you can build your rhetoric around whatever you want. This is you now. This is who you are now. You are supporting a white supremacist that killed people at a moment while we were talking about the death of black people. The people that he killed weren't heroes. No one's going to interpret it that way. And I'm not going to promote it that way. But he didn't know who he was killing. Did he? Did he? But you smooth brained that moment to yourself, didn't you? You went, I know, I'm going to say something stupid. And no. This is your ignorance. This is your ignorance now on display. Because how am I supporting a pedophile? Did Kyle know at the time that he was holding a gun up to a pedophile? Are you going to prove that he knew that? Which part of the court said that that was the case? Nah, you know better. And he did his time. You don't just get to go later on, hey, if he gets shot in the process, we're doing God's will, right? You don't get to do that. If you think that's how justice works, let me tell you what population is known for pedophilia. Dude, you're on the losing side of this one again. I don't think you quite realize you don't have the IQ to absorb the basic understanding of why kids shouldn't have guns. You don't have the basic understanding of why killing people isn't the correct thing to do. You don't have the basic understanding that he didn't know who he was killing. Now, I have a minute left. You can either love me, hate me, whatever you want. But I can tell you now, Society doesn't win when we're hurting people in it. Having kids with guns is hurting people. Pretending like people like Kyle Rittenhouse are fine to do what they did. You want to take justice into your hands? Do I get to kill you because you supported him? Do I get to get a gun and harm you because you're on the wrong side of history this time? Do I get to harm you because you're standing with the others? That's not how democracy works. And if you think that, you probably should be on a plane to Iran or Iraq or somewhere else. Look, I enjoy engagement here. I'm going to be back next week doing the exact same thing. I'm hoping to see you all here. That's why I dropped the link for you to hop up and discuss with me at any time. I want you to like, share, subscribe, whatever it is that you guys do. I'm happy to engage you because you engaged me. We are a society built with different ideals and values. I'm not religious, but I respect those who are. I am not part of any major institution, but I respect those that are. I live in a country that fundamentally believes killing people is wrong. And we do not have a death penalty in this country for that very reason. And I can see the United States is getting somewhat right with its views on that, but never enough. As I wrap this night up, I want you to know you don't need to be with a gun. It's not how you get your rights. Get them through marching. You get them through real action like the people did for workers' rights and everything else. I want to see you all next week, New South Wales time from 7 to 9. I want to thank you for an incredible show and hoping that next week can be just as vibrant. Come and see me and I'm happy to discuss anything you want. I do have loosely things lined up. I didn't even get through half of what I planned because I love engaging you. Thank you. Have a wonderful night. See ya. Like, share, subscribe. Bye.